Hello everyone and welcome to the Yolo Bypass. To the right we have the causeway that's traveled by thousands of commuters from Davis to Sacramento daily. Across here we have the levee that spans all the way over to there.
The Yolo Bypass encompasses 59,000 acres of land, which is located in Yolo County, California, in between Davis and Sacramento, California. The climate in Yolo Bypass resembles that of nearby Davis and Sacramento. The Yolo Bypass is similar to California's Central Valley Mediterranean climate region, where it is warm and dry in the spring, summer, and autumn, and cold and wet in the winter. Under the Köppen climate classification, the Yolo Bypass is classified as a CSA climate, or also known as hot summer Mediterranean climate. The summer days are hot, ranging from 85 to 105 degrees, with the nights usually dropping below 70 degrees Fahrenheit. The drop in temperature is mainly owed to the Delta breeze, which originates from the Pacific Ocean, traveling through the San Francisco Bay and then through the Sacramento-San Joaquin River Delta. The winter days usually reach between 45 to 65 degrees Fahrenheit, while dropping at night to around 35 to 40 degrees Fahrenheit, sometimes dropping below freezing. This area gets roughly 20 inches of annual rain, the majority of which comes from mid-November to mid-March. The Yolo Bypass contains the Fremont Ware Wildlife Area, Sacramento Ware Wildlife Area, Yolo Bypass Wildlife Area, and the Vic Fazio Yolo Wildlife Area. The Vic Fazio Yolo Wildlife Area has been one of the largest public and private restoration projects west of the Florida Everglades. The Yolo Bypass can hold about 4 times the flow of the Sacramento River, which assists in restoring groundwater. The Yolo Bypass also supports an abundance of wildlife habitats, including over 280 terrestrial vertebrate species changing throughout the seasons. The flooding of the bypass provides amazing nursery habitats for native fish species and other aquatic species. Additionally, the agricultural community within the Yolo Basin alone makes around $300 million a year. On a clear day, one is able to see the Sacramento skyline off in the distance, all the while seeing a vast array of birds flying around. Even towards the end of October, when very little rain has fallen on the state, there is a large amount of water everywhere. If you have ever smelled a swamp, the air is somewhat familiar. However, there is also the smell of plants and soil around. The further you venture off into the Yolo Bypass, the less you can hear the never-ending rumble of the causeway and hear the birds chirping all around you. And if you're lucky enough, you may even be able to see some otters playfully swimming around. The Yolo Basin was formed during the last ice age 10,000 years ago. And prior to the construction of the Yolo Bypass, Sacramento experienced severe floods that would last for months. During the 1800s, travel would become extremely limited between cities in the Sacramento Valley because the Yolo Basin would fill up with floodwaters for nearly 100 days. As a result of the severe flooding, the legislature went to work. Enacting the Sacramento River Flood Control Project in 1911, the legislature aimed at diverting excess river floodwaters through many wares and bypasses. Much broader was that the government was finally realizing the importance of controlling floodwaters of the state, and they were realizing the importance that wetlands play in controlling floodwaters. The dispute in the Gravy Reclamation case arose as a result of the legislatively created Reclamation organization. The Reclamation was formed for the purpose of reclaiming historic floodplains, which the Yolo Basin was a portion of the land. The plaintiffs sought an injunction against the Reclamation's building of the Yolo Bypass because the new levees would prevent year-round use of their land and would in fact cause flooding to their lands during the heavy rainfall seasons. The court had 2 separate holdings. First, the court held that the Reclamation's work on the bypass was work done under a legitimate exercise of the police power and that the plaintiffs' damage to their land did not entitle them to compensation. Secondly, the court held that if the flooding was left unchecked, it would inevitably lead to the destruction of the navigability of the river and greater impairment and damage to all the adjacent land. and therefore the plaintiff's injury was consequential damage of future flood control that must be borne on the plaintiffs. So what has happened after this decision? Let's see. First, in 1916, the Sacramento Weir was completed. Second, in 1929, the Fremont Weir was completed. Third, in the 1930s, the U.S. Army Corps' engineer designated the Yolo Bypass floodplain. And currently, the bypass stretches about 41 miles long north to south from Rio Vista past Cache Creek and 3 miles wide. The dispute for the most part appears to be resolved. Today, roughly 75% of the Yolo Bypass is privately owned, with the remaining land set aside for wetlands. During the summer and spring, the majority of the Yolo Bypass is used for agricultural purposes. However, during the wet season is when the Yolo Bypass's main purpose of flood control becomes relevant. The Yolo Bypass has 6 separate inlets. Each inlet allows increased river flows to release into the bypass. This water in the bypass is drained through the tow drain for riparian uses. The remaining water eventually finds its way into the Sacramento-San Joaquin Delta. With the future impacts of climate change, the irregularity of weather patterns is certain to happen. There will be larger storms, which means more water at one given time. Less snow falling because of a warming climate, which means more water that must be controlled at a given time. California preserving the right to flood the Yolo Bypass at any time and preventing landowners in the area from constructing anything that would prevent water flow is extremely important to such an uncertain future of droughts, weather change, and water contaminations. However, not all is doomed. Enjoy the preservation efforts and say bye to all the otters.